You felt it this morning. Maybe it was a noise in the other room. Maybe it was a shadow crossing the edge of your vision. Maybe it was nothing at all. But your heart jumped, your breath caught, and for a fraction of a second, your entire body went on alert. Then you realized it was just the wind, or your cat, or your own reflection. And you laughed it off because that's what modern humans do. But here's the thing. That reaction you just had, it has nothing to do with your apartment. It has nothing to do with your neighborhood, your job, your life. That reaction is 2 million years old, and it will never fully go away. Your brain still thinks something is hunting you, not metaphorically, not as a poetic way of describing stress. Literally, at the level of neurons, hormones, and ancient survival circuits, your nervous system is running software designed for a world where something with teeth could end your life at any moment. You just happen to be living in an era where that software fires constantly, relentlessly, and almost always for nothing. This is the story of why. It starts in Africa. Roughly 2 million years ago, your ancestors were small, physically vulnerable, no claws, no venom, no armor. They were, by most biological measures, prey. Paleoanthropologist Robert Sussman spent decades analyzing fossil records from early hominid sites and discovered something that upended the popular idea of early humans as fearless hunters. The evidence suggested that our ancestors were not at the top of the food chain. They were somewhere in the middle, crouched in trees, sleeping in groups, listening constantly for sounds that did not belong. Sussman called this the prey model of human evolution. The idea is straightforward. For hundreds of thousands of years, the most dangerous thing that could happen to a human was not starvation. It was not infection. It was being eaten. Leopards dragged early hominids up into trees to catch them for later. Eagles large enough to carry a child circled overhead. Crocodiles waited at the water's edge. The fossil record shows bite marks, talon punctures, and claw marks on the bones of ancient humans, and the creatures that left those marks were not rare visitors. They were constant companions. So your ancestors evolved a system to deal with this. The system is called the Threat Detection Network, and it is ancient in a way that is difficult to fully comprehend. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent much of his career mapping this network, and what he found reshaped how we understand fear. The center of it is a small almond-shaped structure buried deep in your brain called the amygdala. The amygdala does not think. It does not reason, weigh evidence, or consider alternatives. It reacts. And it reacts faster than conscious thought is even possible. When you see something that resembles a threat, your amygdala fires before your visual cortex has finished processing the image. Before you know what you saw, your body is already responding. Your heart rate spikes. Adrenaline floods your bloodstream. Your muscles contract. Your pupils dilate. Your digestive system shuts down. Your immune response pauses. Every resource your body has is redirected toward one single goal: survival in the next 10 seconds. Ledoux called this the low road. The signal goes directly from your sensory system to your amygdala, bypassing the prefrontal cortex, bypassing logic, bypassing everything you think of as you. A second signal, traveling along the high road, does go through your cortex. That is the signal that eventually tells you it was just your cat. But by the time that message arrives, your body has already been in full emergency mode for several hundred milliseconds. Your body acts first. Your brain explains it later. This is not a flaw. This was the most important design feature your ancestors ever evolved. In a world full of predators, the cost of a false positive was a racing heart and a moment of embarrassment. The cost of a false negative was death. So natural selection built a system that erred wildly on the side of caution. Anything that looked like a snake might be a snake. Any sound that resembled a large animal was treated as a large animal until proven otherwise. Any unfamiliar face in the dark was assumed to be hostile. The researchers who study this call it the smoke detector principle, a term coined by psychiatrist Randolph Nesse. A smoke detector that goes off when you burn toast is annoying. A smoke detector that fails to go off when your house is on fire is catastrophic. So smoke detectors are calibrated to overdetect. Your amygdala is calibrated the same way. It would rather fire 1,000 times unnecessarily than miss the one time it matters. The problem is that you no longer live in that world. The leopards are gone. The eagles that once hunted your ancestors are gone. The dark water is no longer full of crocodiles. But your amygdala does not know this. It cannot know this because it does not update based on new information the way your rational mind does. It updates based on experience reinforced over millions of years of evolution, and those experiences all point to one conclusion. The world is dangerous, things come out of the dark, and something is always watching. So what happens to that system in a modern environment? It misfires. Constantly. Your threat detection network was designed for specific kinds of danger: sudden movement, unknown sounds, the dark, enclosed spaces, heights, unfamiliar faces, separation from your group, and every single one of these triggers still activates your amygdala today, even when there is no threat attached to any of them. The stranger on the train that you keep watching, the notification sound from your phone at 2 a.m., the shadow that crossed the window, the crowded room that makes you want to stand with your back against the wall, the sense of being watched that causes you to turn around even when no one is there. These are not irrational quirks. They are ancient reflexes. They are your brain running its 2 million-year-old survival protocol in a world that no longer requires it. Psychologist Martin Seligman studied what he called preparedness, the idea that humans are not equally afraid of everything. We develop phobias of snakes and spiders and heights far more easily than we develop phobias of electrical outlets or cars, even though electrical outlets and cars kill vastly more people each year. The fears that grip us most deeply are the fears our ancestors needed most. The ancestral threat catalog is still running. It just has no relevant targets left to aim at. And this matters, because a nervous system that cannot find a real predator to fear does not shut off. It redirects. When your threat detection system fires and finds no physical danger, it looks for something else. Your inbox, your finances, your relationship, the news, the social rejection that your nervous system, at its most primitive level, codes almost identically to physical danger. For most of human history, being cast out of your group did not mean loneliness, it meant death. So your brain treats social exclusion, public embarrassment, and professional failure with the same urgency it once reserved for leopards. You lie awake at night running through a conversation you had 6 years ago because your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a real threat and a remembered one. You catastrophize about scenarios that will almost certainly never happen because your nervous system is not in the business of probability. It is in the business of preparation. Prepare for the worst. Always. Because the ancestors who prepared for the worst are the only ones who survived long enough to have descendants. You are one of those descendants. Every person who ever lived through enough danger to reproduce passed their threat sensitivity on to you. Every generation that survived famine, predation, war, and plague filtered down to you a nervous system tuned to maximum alert. You are, in the most literal biological sense, the product of an unbroken chain of survivors. And survivors, by definition, were the ones who were afraid. There is something worth sitting with in that. The anxiety that keeps you up at night. The hypervigilance you cannot shake. The way your body floods with dread before a meeting, before a difficult conversation, before any moment of uncertainty. These are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that your ancestors were very, very good at staying alive. But you are not being hunted. The leopard is not in the tree above your bed. The darkness outside your window is just darkness. The noise in the other room is almost certainly nothing. Your nervous system does not know that, and it may never fully accept it, but you can know it. You can feel the alarm ring and recognize it for what it is. Not a signal that danger is here. A signal that your ancient brain has been doing its job for 2 million years, and it is not quite ready to stop. When the sun goes down tonight, something in you will listen a little more carefully. You will scan the shadows without deciding to. Your heartbeat may quicken for a reason you cannot name. That is not anxiety. That is your inheritance.